Story 1. The Vanished Passenger. It was late November of 2012. Cold rain was falling on a small town in central Anatolia. At the bus station that night, a long-distance coach was preparing to leave. 14 passengers were listed on the ticket system. The driver checked each ticket one by one. Among them was a young man wearing a gray coat and carrying a small black backpack. He didn't speak much. He simply said good evening, walked down the aisle, and sat in seat number 17. The bus pulled out of the station around midnight. Rain hit the windows. The sound of wipers filled the cabin. Most passengers were scrolling on their phones or trying to sleep. Everything seemed completely normal. The gray-coated man sat quietly, staring out the window as lights of the town disappeared behind them. 2 hours later, the bus reached a roadside rest stop. Lights came on. The driver parked, opened the doors, and most of the passengers got off. Some went to the bathrooms, others went for tea or snacks. As usual, the driver and the assistant counted the people. 14 tickets, 14 passengers, but when the count was made, there were only 13. Seat 17 was empty. At first, nobody panicked. Maybe the man in the gray coat was still inside the bathroom. They waited. 10 minutes passed, then 15. Every other passenger had returned to the bus. Seat 17 was still empty. The assistant checked. There was no bag, no coat, nothing left behind. The seat looked untouched. It was as if no one had ever sat there. The driver reported the situation to the rest stop security. Surveillance cameras were reviewed. The gray-coated man was visible entering the bus back at the terminal. He was clearly there, boarding, walking down the aisle. But at the rest stop, no footage showed him getting off. Every exit door was covered by cameras. 13 passengers got off. 13 came back. The man in the gray coat was not among them. Police were called. Every passenger was questioned. An old man who had sat next to seat 17 swore he had seen him. He sat down right beside me. I watched him looking out of the window. I can't explain how he vanished. Other passengers, however, claimed they had no memory of such a man. Some said I never saw him at all. The police checked the ticket records. There it was. A valid name, Idaho number, payment confirmed. But when they cross-checked, they found something shocking. The person who had bought the ticket had died 3 years earlier. Official records showed the man's death, burial, and death certificate. Yet his name was printed on the passenger list for seat 17. The driver refused to accept it as a mistake. I shook his ticket in my hand. I saw his face. He said good evening to me. I know what I saw. The assistant confirmed the same, and the old man next to the seat would not change his testimony either. But with no belongings, no witness outside of the bus, and no camera footage, there was no way to prove he had ever been there. The incident spread as a rumor. People working at that rest stop began to whisper about the missing passenger. Some said it was a system glitch. Others believed it was something darker, that maybe an extra passenger had slipped into the count. Within weeks, the story was being told across the region. Drivers who stopped at that same rest area late at night began claiming they sometimes saw a man in a gray coat standing in the shadows near the buses. Years later, the case file still sits unsolved. There is no evidence of foul play, no trace of violence, no bag, no ID, no body. Just a missing person who was recorded boarding a bus, who never got off, and who officially should not have been alive to begin with. Seat 17 to this day remains empty on that route whenever the story is told. And no one has been able to answer the simplest question. If he never got off, where did he go? Story 2. The Gas Station Ghost. It was the summer of 2015 in a small rural town. On the edge of the highway, there was a 24-hour gas station. The owner, a man named Kamal, lived upstairs in a small apartment above the store. Business was slow most nights, and security cameras were installed to monitor the shop floor, the pumps outside, and the parking lot. For months, nothing unusual had ever happened. But on the night of August 12th, the cameras captured something that still has no explanation. At 2:43 a.m., the front door of the gas station suddenly swung open. The motion sensors inside triggered the lights. The cash register drawer slid out by itself, coins spilling onto the floor. There was no employee present. Kamal was upstairs asleep. The cameras clearly recorded it. The drawer opening, the coins scattering, but no one was standing there. Minutes later, a shadow appeared on the footage. It wasn't a clear human figure. It was more like a tall, dark blur, moving slowly between the aisles of chips and drinks. The shape stopped near the refrigerators, lingered for a few seconds, then drifted toward the door. Then it vanished. The door never opened again, but the shadow was gone. The next morning, Kamal came downstairs to find coins scattered across the floor. He thought maybe a thief had broken in, but when he checked the door, it was still locked from the inside. No windows were broken. No alarms had gone off. When he reviewed the security cameras, what he saw left him stunned. The drawer moving on its own, the shadow gliding through the aisles. The timestamp showed exactly 2:43 a.m. He replayed it over and over again, but it never made sense. The police were called. They examined the door locks, the cash register, the entire building. No forced entry, no fingerprints other than Kamal's. They suggested maybe it was a mechanical malfunction. But when Kamal asked, "What about the shadow?" the officers had no answer. One of them reportedly muttered, "It looks like a person, but there's no one there." Word spread quickly through the town. Locals came to the station asking to see the footage. Some laughed, saying it was just a trick of the light. Others swore it was a ghost. A few claimed they recognized the shape. It resembled a former employee who had died in a car accident 2 years earlier on that very highway. The outline, the height, even the way the shadow moved seemed eerily familiar. For weeks after, customers said they felt uneasy inside the store. Some reported hearing whispers near the refrigerators. One delivery driver swore he saw someone standing by the pumps at 3 a.m., but when he blinked, the figure disappeared. Another customer said a hand touched his shoulder while he was paying, but when he turned around, no one was there. Kamal eventually posted the footage online. It spread quickly, picked up by forums and even local news. Titles called it the clearest unexplained CCTV footage ever captured. Paranormal investigators visited, spending nights in the gas station with cameras and recorders. They caught strange noises, sudden temperature drops, but no clear evidence beyond the original video. To this day, the video remains unsolved. The drawer opening, the coins spilling, and the dark shadow drifting down the aisles. Was it a camera glitch, a prank, or something that cannot be explained? What is certain is this. At 2:43 a.m. on August 12th, the gas station recorded something impossible, and the shadow in those frames still has no name. Story 3. The Silent 911 Call. It was the winter of 2012. In a quiet suburban neighborhood outside of Chicago, on a cold Tuesday night, at exactly 1:17 a.m., the emergency dispatch center received a call. The number was local. The operator answered with the standard greeting. 911, what's your emergency? But there was no voice. At first, the line was filled with static. Then faint breathing could be heard. Slow, steady breaths, like someone was holding the phone close but refusing to speak. The operator repeated the question. Still no words, only breathing. After 30 seconds, the call ended abruptly. The system traced the origin of the call. It came from a single-family house on Oak Ridge Lane. The dispatcher immediately sent 2 patrol units to check. When officers arrived, the house was dark. No lights, no movement. They knocked on the door. No response. The doors were locked. The house appeared empty. A neighbor came outside wrapped in a robe and told police that the family who lived there, a young couple and their child, had gone on vacation a week earlier. The place has been empty since they left, the neighbor said. There shouldn't be anyone inside. Confused, the officers called the phone number again. They stood on the porch as the ringing echoed faintly from inside the house. But no one answered. The officers forced entry. They searched every room. Nothing was disturbed. No signs of burglary. No signs of forced entry. The rooms were clean, the beds made, the kitchen spotless. But the phone, a cordless landline, sat on its cradle in the living room. It was still connected. There was no sign that anyone had touched it. The report was filed as false call. But just 2 nights later at 3:02 a.m., another call came in from the same number. This time, the dispatcher again heard faint breathing, but also a sound in the background, a soft thud, like footsteps moving across a wooden floor. Again, the call lasted less than a minute. Again, the line went dead. Police returned to the house. Once more, everything was locked and dark. They searched with flashlights, checking closets, the basement, the attic. Nothing. No intruders. No residents. The family was still confirmed to be on vacation, hundreds of miles away. This time, officers left recording devices inside. For the next week, they captured nothing unusual. But on the seventh night, the dispatcher received a third call. The same number, the same breathing. But this time, a faint whisper was audible. One word, it sounded like help. Officers rushed to the house. Inside, they found the recorder had captured something chilling. The sound of footsteps circling the rooms, doors creaking open, and heavy breathing near the microphone. Yet again, the house itself was empty when they arrived. When the family returned from vacation, they were shocked to learn what had happened. They swore no one had access to the house. Nothing was missing, nothing disturbed. But the calls stopped after they returned. The police closed the case with no explanation. To this day, no one knows who made those calls, or how the phone dialed 911 from an empty house. The recordings still exist in the archives. They are short, only seconds long, but the sound of breathing, footsteps, and that faint whisper, help, has never been explained. These were just 3 of the countless mysteries that remain unsolved. Stories that begin like any other night and end in silence with no answers. If you've watched until now, it means you're searching for the truth too. Maybe one day someone will uncover what really happened. Until then, stay alert, stay in the dark, and remember, some mysteries never want to be solved.